Welcome back to the Transplating Podcast. My name is Bear, joined by the lovely Daphne, and with her
They're Yoshis.
Yoshi earrings.
They're Yoshis.
Those are cute.
Yeah, they're blue Yoshis. I also got green Yoshis.
Also,
Yoshi. Okay, and yeah. Oh, there we go. Didn't even show it on the fucking program. Yeah, fuck it. They're blue Yoshis.
very cute.
Okay, today we got Natalie with us. Natalie reached out to me. They are she is very active in politics and has a lot of experience in this field, so that'll be a fun discussion. We did go through the information that you sent us, Natalie. It is so much information. You sent those are the longest not paragraph. Those are the longest articles ever. Holy shit, it was a lot. I figured let's just go ahead and start with your story, if you're okay with that. Let's just kind of hear some of you and kind of take it from there.
Sure. My story. What an open-ended. That's great. Thank you for that.
That's how you get people talking, is open-ended.
Yeah. So in the beginning of my adult life, I was an actor. I went to school on a theater scholarship and moved to New York for a little while and had a sort of regional career
Cool.
in around southeast Nebraska for most of my early to mid 20s. And then I came out as trans in my late 20s. I was 28 or 9-ish. That changed my casting options pretty drastically, I think, for reasons that most trans people can understand. And I had to figure out something else to be doing with myself. I had always been pretty politically, what's the word? In tuned, really was paying attention a lot to what was going on politically at my local and state and federal levels. And I got into fundraising. I raised money for a whole bunch of candidates all over the country and some 501c3s and some ballot initiatives, raised some money for Alan Grayson in Florida, who's a former congressman down there, Al Franken, while he was still in Congress, did some money raising for him, some environmental issues, and a whole host of ballot initiatives all over the country, and got involved with some local races in Lincoln, Nebraska, where I'm originally from.
So, were you supporting these people in other states, like from Nebraska?
I was fundraising for them from Nebraska. Yeah, there's a company called Hudson Bay that I worked for that had an office in Nebraska, and we were third-party fundraisers. It's a pretty ubiquitous thing for larger campaigns to outsource some small dollar donation gathering, and that's what I was doing for a while. Started working on some local campaigns, city council campaigns, mayor race, a couple of state Nebraska state legislative races that had their districts in Lincoln that were basically districts that I was living in or was adjacent to, and started creating a name for myself in southeast Nebraska as a informed and effective trans advocate and just politico. I got involved with ACLU Nebraska and Out Nebraska, which is an LGBT focused 501c3 lobbying group in Lincoln. The city was talking about doing a non-discrimination ordinance for LGBT plus people in housing and employment. And we did a pilot canvas on that, sort of judging the city's opinions on that, which I directed. And that raised my profile even a little bit more in the city. And then there was a little hiccup around that in 2019 or so. I made a little bit of national news for a coffee shop incident.
Right.
At that time, the 2019 presidential calendar was just starting. The Polk County Steak Fry, which is the unofficial kickoff of the Iowa caucus, was just about to happen. Kamala Harris's state director in Iowa was from Lincoln, Nebraska, and had heard about my story. I ended up meeting Kamala and several of the other candidates who were running in that race at that time.
What was that like?
Yeah.
Meeting Kamala?
Yeah.
Oh, well, she's great. I've got several very fun stories about working for her. The thing that I tell people about national politicians, more often than not, what you see on television, what you see from their interviews, that is who they are. And that's who Kamala is. When you see her on stage at an event or in an interview, that's who she is. She's gregarious. She's very warm, right? We called her Mamala on as a staff.
That's adorable.
Yeah, and but she also, like most moms, she's got a line, and if you step on it or get close to it, she'll let you know, right? And I think that we saw some of that, especially in this last election. Tim Walz is everybody's favorite uncle, Cory Booker is a little bit awkward and tells the worst dad jokes in the world. But he's lots of fun. And, and the list goes on and on. So, the national politicians are just people, and they interact with conversations kind of like this, with interviews exactly as anybody else would. They don't put on airs very often. So Kamala's great. She's wonderful. I loved working for her. She was really warm to all of us, and she treated us right. So yeah, went to work for her, and then Cory Booker, and then Michael Bloomberg in quick succession in the 2019 cycle. After Michael,
Can I pause you?
Dang.
yeah,
Thanks.
That was. Oh.
Give me 1 minute here.
Oh no, is everything okay?
Yeah.
Looks like a tech hiccup.
Hiccup.
Yeah. Now I want to go to the Polk County Steak Fry.
You should. Everybody goes. You can get in front of any of the candidates that are there. They're really accessible at that event. You should go.
Yeah, yum. Sorry, Daphne, I'll let you finish.
You're fine. I'm not listening to you anyway.
Most intelligent thing. What's this page?
Is that your phone?
Yeah.
Right. It's so thick.
No?
Oh, is that a case that's on it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what's going on. It just you got it right next to the camera. It's like, my God, it's a brick.
No, I got rid of the brick. I quit putting those otter boxes on it. Not dresser, de-esser, stupid thing.
Got it. That makes sense. If you ever need any other...
Stop talking. Why the fuck are you talking to me?
Now the brick is talking. Thank you for your patience, Natalie.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Technical difficulties. I get it.
Fuck, those are expensive.
Mm.
I'm not finding it.
Okay.
I'll just have to do it post.
Okay.
I'll just have to do it post. All right.
Save it for post.
Yeah, just means more work in post. I was just looking for a de-esser. This one.
What?
A de-esser. It allows you to... you ever heard recordings where when people say the S sound, it comes through like really sharp?
It's like...
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm
a
looking for a D.
de-esser. Okay.
A de-esser.
Is that really what they're called?
A D?
Yeah.
Yes, or, yeah.
I love that.
Yes.
My post-production program will let me do it. I was hoping to do it for live, but that's okay.
I did want to go ahead and...
I was like, where were we at?
Oh, so yeah, I think I can give you a
Mamala
good place.
and
Still talking
Yeah.
about political accolades.
So she was great. She treated us really well. I loved working for her. And then after her, I went to Cory Booker and then Michael Bloomberg in that 2020 cycle. After Michael, that was like right when COVID started and Joe stopped hiring. He put a hiring freeze on everybody. They didn't hire anybody more for the general election. So missed out on working for him, which was unfortunate. And that was the end of my 20 cycle. But then, I moved back to Lincoln and was active there. There was a little bit more with that fairness ordinance situation.
What's that?
In 2020, the Lincoln, we were talking about that some more in 2021 time frame.
What is the ordinance, though?
It was that non-discrimination ordinance that I had mentioned previously, the LGBT non-discrimination ordinance in housing and employment in Lincoln.
Right.
We had some more city discussions on that through 2020 and 21, a couple more local races that I was involved in that time frame. And during the 22 midterm, I was in Minnesota. I worked for the Minnesota State Democratic Party. The DFL is what they're called. Worked pretty closely with Governor Walz in that race and Attorney General Keith Ellison. I was in Duluth. Duluth was my responsibility, the Duluth Metro,
right.
During that race. And so I was working with several of the state candidates as well during that cycle. And then in 23, I moved down to Lawrence, Kansas, where I am now. I'm currently managing a state house candidate. I think that I'm probably going to be picking up a couple more clients for this cycle here in Kansas. And that's basically to today. That's a long nutshell, but hopefully that gives your listeners and viewers a little bit of an idea of who I am and what I do.
Well, that's fun because outside of this, I'm helping a political campaign as a media manager, and so I think it'd be fun to sit down with you at some point and just say, hey, here's where we're at and where we need to go. Maybe.
Absolutely, let's do it. I'd love to. Yeah.
Okay, so where did you have any questions up to this point, Bear? Bear prepared like 1,000 questions, and
kind of.
Always good to be.
I guess my problem is like chronologically, what do I ask first?
Fair.
I think that's my issue. I do want to. I do want to recognize that. Oh, absolutely, yeah. You got one hell of a resume and accolades. You really do, and
Thank you.
I.
Generous.
But I think that I would like to dial it back down to speak more about you and your journey. And I guess my first question would be in like, how do you ask it? Like, um, when did you know that it was
That's a
time
good
that
question.
it was time to transition? Like, I'm thinking of like childhood. Like, what was your childhood like?
I want to know how you picked the
know?
name Natalie.
Yeah.
Uh, well, okay. We'll start with that. Natalie is the feminine of my given name,
Fair.
so that was
Okay.
easy. That was just an easy choice. It sounded close enough, and I was going to
Fair.
be able to answer to it easily, right?
Mhm.
I knew really early. I mean, one of my first memories is knowing. But I was in a mid-sized Midwestern city in the late '80s and '90s. AIDS epidemic was big. Um, in my lifetime, uh, the very first out public school employee in Lincoln came out, right? So being in the umbrella was mm, it wasn't necessarily encouraged at that time, right? And
Mm.
Reagan was president, Bush one was president. I lived in a white suburb, a fairly conservative area. My mom was sort of a Reaganish Democrat.
It was
She
practically.
might bristle at that. She might bristle at that description, but she was a kind of conservative leaning blue person. My dad was a Rush Limbaugh Republican, right? So
Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I no one ever said anything to me directly, but with the AIDS epidemic happening, with Matthew Shepard happening in my lifetime, and some other, which is in Nebraska, or he was from Nebraska. Um, uh, there were just a lot of social cues that were, probably don't say this. So I sat on it for a real long time. I got into acting, which gave me sort of an escape. I was pretending to be someone that I wasn't all of the time,
Mhm.
and getting onto the stage let me do something else. Yeah, and I was good at it because I was good at hiding. Um, and then in my 20s, my mid to late 20s, I was in a very serious relationship. I got engaged. She had a young son. He was 8, 9, 10 when we started dating. We moved in together. I was looking at the prospect of being a husband and a father figure for the rest of my life. Had a little bit of a spicy mentee bee about it, and that was the catalyst of me coming out. So, like, I just realized, oh, I cannot do this. I cannot be. I can't pretend to be a man for a wife and for a child, right? I cannot do that. And yeah, does that answer that question? That's basically how that happened for me.
Yeah, that's not an acting role. That's real life.
Yeah, that's
Like,
real life.
that's real life.
Exactly.
That's not an
Yeah.
acting role. Yeah. Because
Well,
that was going to be my question was what was the event that led up to the initial beginning process of your journey of transitioning?
you said like
Yeah.
one of your earliest memories was knowing. So what does that look
Yeah.
like?
Mm-hmm.
I remember being really young and sort of having like a daydream of being on like an assembly line, like in a factory, like a toy, and being put together wrong, and then
It's a
like
missed potato
like
head.
yeah, and then like being like recalled and put together correctly, right? So like I knew pretty early on that this body wasn't matching what was between the ears. And I don't think that there was any catalyst that brought that on. I mean, I was young, toddler, still in diapers probably when I was, those first memories of that realization are coming through for me.
Right.
Uh, so yeah, I don't think that there was any real catalyst for it. RuPaul was relatively big even back then, even in the early 90s. She was in ads in magazines and stuff, and she was sometimes on TV. I remember looking at her as sort of a positive um, trans role model. There was, at that time, most of trans representation in media was, you were either a
A
murder
hooker.
victim or a drug addict,
Yeah.
Sure. Sure.
something like that. So I remember being pretty young and recognizing RuPaul as someone who, you can be this and you can have a successful life. So that was encouraging through youth and adolescence. Um, and then there wasn't any real one moment that led me to coming out as an adult. I was living with my ex. My stepchild was in my life, and we were engaged. We hadn't set a date for a wedding yet, but it was time to start talking about that. And I just I realized that, well, I can't do this. I got very depressed. I started seeing a therapist, right? And
Sure. Sure.
it took several sessions for me to finally blurt it out. But I knew that that's what the problem was, and it got to the point where it needed to be said, and it finally was. My ex tried her best to be supportive, especially in that early going. I know that I broke her heart, though. We had a pretty messy breakup in the end. We don't communicate anymore,
Right.
which
I was just
hurts,
yeah, I was just gonna
right?
ask if you still
Um,
had, connections and contact,
no,
especially
no,
especially with the child, they
yeah. But she's happy. She is remarried now,
Oh, good.
and Kiddo grew up and is everyone's very proud of him.
cool.
And so yeah, and to be clear, I don't blame her for you know I hurt her. I
Right.
lied to her, right? And she did try her best for a while to be as supportive as she could, but it just wasn't working. We weren't going to have a relationship, a romantic relationship anymore.
I'm
Uh,
curious. Just personal opinion here. I'm curious. Uh Dating now as a trans person, is it a requirement to tell the other person that you're trans?
for me, it is, like, personally. I don't think that that's a ubiquitous rule for all trans people. But I've not had any surgeries, right? And
Right.
my lighting isn't very good right now. But um, oftentimes men will not know in the early going. They
Right.
just think that I just kind of have a low voice or whatever. And so I like to get it out of the way really, really early, often before we've even met in person. And that's just something that I do. Like, I just let these guys know. I'm like, hey, I know that you like my pictures and that you think I'm attractive, but just, so we're all on the same page here. This is what's going on.
Do you tell them before
Um,
the first date?
yeah, yeah, every single time. Yes. Yeah. But that, again, I want to be clear for everyone listening. Like, that's my choice.
Right.
That's how I personally feel comfortable addressing that situation. And I don't necessarily think that it's like a moral imperative for trans people to do that. But for me, that's how I feel most comfortable approaching potential romantic partners.
Well, and I think it's important maybe to point out to some other people that are early in their transition that not telling somebody and going on that first date can actually put yourself in a
Can
really
be dangerous.
dangerous
Yes.
It
position.
can be.
Yes.
Yes, it definitely can be. And I do think that that is something that trans people should consider, especially trans women, when they
Yeah.
are entering the dating pool.
Yeah. Fair enough.
When you were beginning your journey, did you run into any difficulties with affirming care?
No, actually, it was really easy for me. My first therapist when I was first got HRT, I walked into the therapist's office. I said, "Look, I'm almost 30. I don't want to mess around with this. I know what I am, and I know that it's true, and I want HRT from you. And if you're gonna make me do this living for 6 months or 12 months, like I'm just gonna go find a different therapist." And she said, "Yeah, okay, that sounds good. Let me just do a little assessment test here for you so that I know that you're not a drug seeker, basically." And and we did that, and it was all fine. I think that I saw my therapist twice before I got my first HRT prescription. So it was less than 30 days.
Wow.
And Lincoln is a blue dot in Nebraska. It's a very
Right.
very new place in a lot of ways, and living there was, there's jackasses and bigots everywhere, right?
Sure.
But in terms of accessing care, in my once when I came out, it was great. I didn't have any issues. I will say that that's not ubiquitous for everybody that was in Lincoln. I do know some trans people that did have some issues, depending on what doctors they decided to go see and what their personal family and interpersonal dynamics were. I do know some people that had some road bumps that they had to get over in my community there.
Yeah.
But for me, it was very smooth sailing.
Did you have any difficulties responding to the HRT, or did you just? I mean, did you
No.
respond well to it? No complications.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it helped depression very quickly for me.
Right.
Boom.
Like getting those hormones the way that my body needed them to the way that my brain needed my body to have them be. I felt much more comfortable in my skin very quickly. And
Boom.
yeah, I had no really negative side effects to HRT at all.
Wonderful.
Sounds good.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Let's fast forward a little ways here.
Yeah.
As for
Okay. Originally, you sent me some links to. You sent me you sent me a few links, and the articles were forever long, but they tell an interesting story. And I thought maybe we could get in and kind of share some of that story about
Right.
The coffee shop.
the coffee
incident.
shop incident. Yes.
Coffee shop. Yeah. Okay. I mean, this is a saga, you guys. So interject at any point, right?
We will.
Oh, I'm buckled. I'm ready.
Okay. So in 20, I might get the dates a little bit wrong here. In 20,
19.
19.
no, it was before that.
Oh.
18.
Uh,
17.
I want to say 2017, I think it was.
I got there.
It was either 15 or 17. Lincoln had a civic election. The city council has 7 members, and we got 6 Democrats elected. We got our first out LGBT person elected to a seat on the city council in that race. We got a new blue mayor. We had a 3-term Democratic mayor right before her, and then she got in, which was a big win for us. She was just the second female elected mayor of the city of Lincoln ever. The city was really, really excited about this. The political class was like, hey, we've got a Dem mayor, we've got a supermajority Dem city council.
We got a
We've got
damn
our
mayor.
We got a
Yeah,
dim
we've got our
mayor.
first
Yeah.
We've got our first out LGBT city council member. And then there was a vacant seat that the mayor got to appoint, and she appointed another out LGBT member of the council. So we had 2 sitting, one who had been elected. And their had been for many years up to this point an effort among liberals in the city to introduce what the city called a fairness ordinance. Um, it very basically, it was just non-discrimination, legal non-discrimination, civic protections for LGBT people in housing and employment and public accommodations. Really simple stuff.
Right.
Um, uh, we had tried to do it a handful of years prior. The city had tried to get that accomplished a handful of years prior. The city council had passed it. And then we had a member of the LGBT community in Lincoln who was struggling with some mental health problems. She was a former athlete at the University of Nebraska. Lincoln loves its Husker sports. She was a basketball player on the team and had done pretty well. And she staged a home invasion hate crime against herself in an effort to swing public opinion on the fairness ordinance. It came out that she had staged it on herself. It blew up in our face, right? All of a sudden, the conservatives were very motivated to go out and vote against this thing. And what the city council ended up doing was, so in Lincoln, anything that the city council does can be put up to a public vote if enough signatures are gathered within 30 days of passage. It's a pretty low threshold that the city needs to get that signature total. So some conservatives had gotten the signatures raised, and what happens at that point is that the city council has a decision to either put the issue up for a vote or just not enact the ordinance. Right? They're not required to put it up to a vote, but if they want to enact it, it has to be put up to a vote. And so what the city council did, we had a majority Democrats on the city council at that time. What they did is they just were like, okay, we had this fake home invasion thing that's poisoning public opinion. We're not going to put this up to a vote. What we're going to do is we're just going to sit on this thing. And that's what they did. They just didn't enact it. They didn't put it up to a vote. They just had this ordinance they had passed and they threw it to the side. And they're like, well, we'll let a future city council deal with that, right? So in 15 or 17, whatever it was, right, we're a handful of years past. We just had this election. We've got this new supermajority Dem city council. We've got 2 out people. We've got the new mayor, and everyone was like, fairness ordinance, it's time. Now is the time. Let's go do this, right? Now, about a year before that, I had been the director of a canvas that was funded by ACLU Nebraska and Out Nebraska, which is an LGBT lobbying 501c3. We knew that if we wanted to do the fairness ordinance in the city of Lincoln, that we were going to have to put it up to a vote. We knew whether we did the one that had been sitting in limbo or did a new one, that the conservatives were going to gather those signatures, and it was going to be a ballot fight that we were going to have. And so ACLU and Out Nebraska wanted to gauge public opinion on it. And I got hired as the director of that canvas. There had been 2 cities that had that had voted on a similar issue. One was Anchorage, Alaska at that time, and Houston, Texas had also held a vote. Anchorage won their vote and Houston lost. And so we had a relatively small sample size of what it was like to run that type of campaign. Okay. We knew that the opposition messaging was going to be about trans women in bathrooms, almost entirely focused on that talking point. And that talking point is really effective, especially for people who are kind of waffly on it. They don't really have trans people in their lives. They don't really know what trans experience is like. When you start bombarding them with messaging that this is going to danger your mom or grandma or daughter or sister or whatever when they're trying to use a bathroom, well, that makes a lot of sense to those people. And that messaging works really well in a soundbite or a radio ad. And so we knew, okay, if we're going to be successful in this, what we have to do is go and have persuasive arguments at the door with people. And so we were testing. Yeah, go ahead, Daphne. I see you.
Yeah. What was different between Alaska and Houston? Why did Alaska pass and Houston not?
That's a really good question. Alaska Alaska had, you've got to go door to door to these people to fight that messaging on a ballot initiative that's on that specific issue. You have to go door to door. You have to have conversations in person, face to face, in order to effectively flip that messaging on its head and get people to understand, like, no, this is much more complex than that. And Alaska had a lot less people that they had to go and talk to, right? The campaign didn't cost as much money. They didn't have the numbers that Houston had to go out and talk about, right? And also, Houston is in Texas, right? And so the opposition against the position in Houston was a lot better funded, and had a lot more national money flowing into that election. And that's basically what it was in a nutshell. The numbers were much larger than in Anchorage, and the money that they were fighting against was also much larger.
Okay.
And they just didn't quite have the time to go out and have as many conversations as they needed to in that race. So we're doing this program in Lincoln, and we're going to Democratic doors and undecideds and some Republican doors, and we're kind of getting engaged on what the city feels. And what we understand at the end of that is that, okay, we're a little bit underwater on this. If we held the vote today, we would probably lose, but it's not so much that we couldn't win. We think that we're in a position where if we had a properly funded campaign and well-trained canvassers, we could go and have this, we could go do this. We could. And that's what we told the city council. That was our report to the city council at that time, right? We're like, okay, we can't do it today, right? We would definitely lose if we did it today, but we think that we can win, and here's how much we think it would cost, and here's about how long we think it would take to get into a good position to hold this vote. And we sent that off to the city council. And then they sat on that for a little while. They had this new election, and now they want to do this, right? So myself, ACLU Nebraska, Out Nebraska, a handful of other holders were invited to a table with several city councilors and the mayor's office. We were talking about the possibility of doing this. Myself and the people who had been involved with that canvas were saying, look, this is not the same as you guys as individuals going out and winning your races. Mayor, this is not the same as a voter deciding to vote for you or your opponent, right? This is an issue campaign. This is what we're going to be up against. Our chief opponent in this race is going to be the Nebraska Family Alliance, the NFA, who is an extremely well-funded lobbying organization in Nebraska. They exist for two reasons. The only things that they do is they oppose abortion access and they oppose LGBT rights.
So,
and they're really, really good at it.
What's the difference between running for office and running for what did you call it?
Doing a ballot initiative, doing an issue campaign.
Yeah, because wouldn't you think that like sending out something for votes would be the same either way? Like why does it change?
Well, when you're talking about a person, right, a candidate, they've got a whole platform, right? They're not. They might have LGBT rights as part of their platform, but that's just a section of what they're running on. They're also running on, taxes. They're running on infrastructure. They're running on, a whole whatever it is, right? And LGBT issues is just a piece of a candidate's platform, right? But when you're doing a ballot initiative on an issue, it is just that issue. Right. And you don't get to go have debates you don't get to see a person that you're considering voting for. You're not considering a totality of a platform, right?
It's hyper-focused.
Right. It's hyper-focused on one issue. And this issue in particular, when you're talking about states or civic locales voting on LGBT access, the right understands that if they can make the issue about trans women using bathrooms, that messaging is just so effective for them. And I've said this many times, I am so jealous of how effective that messaging is for them. The conservatives, they really understand it. They hammer it expertly. They really do. They understand what they're doing and how that message works, and they do it really, really well. I mean, it's really good. It's really very good.
Mm.
And for a Politico, it's almost awe inspiring how organized they are on that issue specifically. Um, and so fighting against that messaging requires you got to go and talk to people, and you have to lay out very clearly, like, look, trans people, when trans people just need to pee, right? We're not deciding to transition because we're sexual deviants. Like, if we were sexual deviants, we would just put on, we wouldn't be trans. We just put on a wig, and like, if that's what you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, and you
Right.
have these, you got to walk these people through this, right? It usually takes two conversations that are an average of 15 minutes at the door, right? To get people to switch off of that messaging if they've bought into that trans people are going to attack your female family members in the bathroom, right? If they've bought into that, flipping them off of that takes, on average, two conversations face to face that are an average of 15 minutes each, right? So
Wow.
that takes a lot of money to train canvassers to have those types of conversations consistently, and to be equipped enough to be able to deal with the door getting slammed in your face, and having to deal with a lot of disappointment at the doors.
And angry
So,
people.
Angry.
and angry
Hmm.
people, right? Yeah, and bigots, right? You're going to hear a lot of really shitty things at the door when you're having those conversations. So the money that it takes to fight against that negative messaging is more, right? Like, they're able to do more with less, right? And we have to have a really robust campaign with highly trained canvassers, and we got to go train them to have these conversations. And our argument doesn't work very neatly in a 30-second soundbite for a radio ad or a TV ad, and theirs does, right? So it costs more to fight against it. It takes more resources to fight against it. And that's kind of the issue that we were dealing with. We were telling the city council and the mayor's office at that time, like, we can do this, but you guys would have to get real serious about raising some money, right? And then we would have to take time to train people, and we would have to have a pretty robust campaign, and we think it would take about 12 months.
So
Mm.
for
And
somebody that is wanting to, because I mean that's still a thing that we're seeing today is people arguing about bathroom use, right? Sarah
yeah,
McBride was having the very issue in Congress.
Yep.
yeah,
So for somebody
yeah.
that wants to go make that change today, it takes the conversations. What does the conversation look like? Like just a brief overview.
Right. You've got to humanize the issue. Um, you've got to go and tell someone, you've got to basically get them to understand that trans people are predators is a propaganda piece, right? Once they have sort of bought into the, this is going to be dangerous for your wife or your daughter in a bathroom space or a locker room space, that's like all of a sudden that's all they're thinking about. They're just thinking about sexual predators, right? And so you have to explain to them, like, look, if you sign on to a vote that would keep trans people out of these spaces, you're not stopping sexual predators, right?
Right.
There's nothing that says a sexual predator couldn't still go into the bathroom if that's what they wanted to do. That law doesn't help that. All it really does is make sure that trans people have to go into the bathroom that doesn't align with their gender expression or outward appearance, which can be dangerous for us, right?
Hmm.
That, and so you start walking them through how the potential for crime increases happen when you exclude trans people from gender spaces. You start talking about physical safety for trans people and mental health issues for trans people. And you've got to just sort of step by step walk them through, okay, this is every single reason why this argument that you've bought into doesn't make very much sense, right? And in order to have those conversations be consistent and to hit the points that we need to hit in all of those things, that takes some pretty intense training for the canvassers. Did that answer your question, Daphne?
Yeah,
The
it
conversations are
does. I also think it's important to point out that this isn't the first time this argument's been used. It was used against gay people when gay people were wanted to do marriage, right? Is that, oh, they're sexual predators wanting to, it's also, it was used against black people back in the civil rights era, that, they had segregated bathrooms, and black people were sexual predators, and that's why they needed to keep the bathroom segregated. So this isn't a new issue. This is an argument that has been brought out many times over.
Many times. Many times. Yes, many times. And you're exactly right. It is the same type of argument that was used against racial integration. It is the same type of argument that was used against interracial marriage. Same argument that was used against gay marriage. Same argument that was used in the AIDS epidemic. It's the same thing every time. And it just, every single time, it just takes a whole lot of work to get people off of that narrative. Once they've bought into that narrative, it takes a lot of very concerted, very organized work.
And they still voted for Trump.
Off of that.
And they still,
Right. So that was in 20, maybe that was in 2019. Maybe that was when that election happened, when we finally had those conversations. Maybe that, and then 2017 was the canvas, right? I think that, okay, yeah. Now my timeline is getting back into this. Yes. So yeah, the canvas was about 2017, right? 2019, we had that election. City council and mayors want to sit down. We want to do this fairness ordinance. We're telling them we can do it, but we need money and time. They didn't want to hear that. Those conversations were very not comfortable. A lot of them were sort of taking the position like build it and they will come. Like we just had these great electoral wins in the city. Like, all we need to do is put this on the ballot and we're going to win. And myself and others were at the table saying very clearly and forcefully as the weeks went on, no, that's not correct. You cannot do it that way. The NFA is going to pour money into this. They're going to be extremely organized. We're going to have a campaign. And oh, by the way, because of this canvas that we did a couple of years ago, we already know that we're a little bit underwater on this issue. This data is not old enough that it should be discounted, right? This is 24-month-old data. We're not in a position where we can just put this on the ballot and win. There were a lot of people in the room saying that those of us who were saying that we needed a campaign were just political operatives who were looking for a payday, that we wanted to have a job and that we wanted to get paid to work on a campaign. So it got really insidious. There was a lot of yelling went on.
Yeah,
it was.
You got brutal.
It was brutal. I mean, I made some enemies at that table. Other people made some enemies at that table. It got very heated in a couple of those conversation sessions that we were having. Really heated. Like a lot of finger pointing, a lot of like, you motherfuckers, excuse my French, but you motherfuckers in elected government do not understand what it is that you're talking about. We told them, like, look, if you do this, we were telling them, if you do this, if you have this civic conversation on trans bathroom access, because that's what our opponents are going to make it about, right? That's what this vote is going to be about. If you have that conversation civically, you're going to be increasing mental health issues for the LGBT population in Lincoln. There's going to be this whole civic conversation about whether or not we are worthy of non-discrimination protections. And that's going to create some real issues for people who are already at higher risk of mental health problems. Also, you're going to be emboldening bigots in our community to do bad things. We could see an increase of violence in the city just by virtue of having the conversation, let alone what our chances would be of winning, right?
Sure.
Like, you don't understand, you guys. If you have this conversation, this is a big deal. This is a huge responsibility that you're talking about undertaking. And if you're going to do it, you have to have us funded and you have to have a campaign. And it took a couple of months for us to get that across to them. It was rough, right? But we finally did it. We finally got the city council, the lead city councilor who was really pushing for this. She got into the newspaper and said, we've been having conversations this summer and we just don't have community buy-in on it right now. And we're not going to introduce a new fairness ordinance right now. And big sigh of relief, right? That day, right? And at that time, I was working at a coffee shop. I was in the kitchen making crepes.
Yeah.
And I got in the day that article appeared in the paper that the city council had made the decision that we're not going to do this right now.
Okay.
I walked into work. I had a little bit of a cold. I walked into work, and the communications director for the Nebraska Family Alliance was in the store. And I was again, these conversations were very vitriolic, and it took a lot of time to convince the city government that they couldn't do what they were wanting to do because we weren't in a position to win, right? And if they wanted to get serious about it, it was going to take a lot of work, and it took some convincing, and it was rough. And I did make enemies of people who used to be friends in that room because of these conversations. And then I go into my coffee shop job, and there's the communications director for the NFA. There she is, enjoying her crepe and her coffee, right? And I was just ruminating about it in the kitchen, and at that shop, the kitchen is open, right? So it's just a little wall, and behind it is all the kitchen stuff, right? So we can see out into the dining room. They can connect there's nothing between having a conversation between the kitchen and whoever's out there.
Okay.
And she was leaving, and I just screamed at her. I just screamed at her to get the fuck out, and to not come back. And how dare you show up at a coffee shop as a regular? She was a regular, by the way. She was in there all the time. And, I was like, you know that most of us are queer here. And, I threw a whole bunch of profanity at her. And she was a former staffer for one of our federal senators at the time. She was the communications director for the Nebraska Family Alliance at that time. She had a whole bunch of pretty well-connected conservative voices in her sphere. She went back to Twitter. Her office was just a couple of blocks down the street. She just trotted herself back to our office, went onto Twitter, and put out a tweet about, I just got screamed at in a coffee shop. Woe is me, right? And inside of 60 minutes, it was on national conservative radio. I got fired pretty immediately once the news had broken. Like, my direct superior at the moment that it happened said, of course we support you, and like, but this might be an issue. And then a little while later, they had gotten a call from the ownership, and I was fired, right? And then it was a national international news story. Actually, made it across the pond. And that story lasted for about a week or so, and then I met Kamala. So
Right on.
that's sort of the nutshell of that. And then we revisited it again in 2020, and again we had to sort of shoot down the city government. That was also a really bad situation. We actually did lose a trans person in Lincoln to suicide because the city council was being irresponsible with it again. But yeah, I really just rambled at you guys there. I hope that was cohesive and understandable.
Yeah, I just want to go back to the initial confrontation and ask was that an act of passion? Was that just an absolutely, yeah,
Absolutely.
or did you feel empowered by, like you said, like you're coming into a shop that employs gender diverse people? Like, did you feel empowered by that, or was it just an act of you just did it?
Right. Okay. So they did employ a lot of queer people, and they were very proud of that, and they still are, by the way. Coltiva Espresso and Crepes in Lincoln, Nebraska. If you're ever in town, go check them out. They're great. They had told everybody, especially the queer people on staff, like if you've got a customer that's being bigoted towards you, you are allowed to kick them out, right? That was communicated to us. Now, sort of wrapped up in that communication was like they have to be bigoted to you while they're in the store. right?
Right.
They have to be creating a situation, right? Which I just sort of conveniently, like, I was like, I'm going to be fine with this because this person really is like an Uber picket, right? I'm going to be totally fine with this. But she was always polite in the store. She had said nothing to me. I started that interaction, right? So I didn't exactly follow their policy, right? And I had created this ooh, instant national story for them, and I don't blame them for their decision to let me go. I think that was the responsible decision for that ownership to do. But to answer your question, Barry, yeah, I did. In the moment, I did feel empowered to do it, and I had it in my head that I was going to be safe and completely fine. I did not think that I was going to lose my job.
Because in a couple of the articles, you had said that you're not sorry for what you said. You're just
Oh, no.
you are sorry for the consequences that resulted.
Yeah, well, not just for me, because it became such a huge story. Um, my former coworkers got a lot of heat. Like the store phone started ringing off the hook. I understand that they had to unplug it for several days there. Like they started getting a lot of shit. Like Westboro Baptist decided to show up.
Oh my!
And,
Because this,
it became a thing. And yeah, my former coworkers had to deal with that for a while in their workspace, right? And I did feel very bad about that, and still do. I love those people.
yeah, this was
But
covered.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh,
No,
this was covered by Newsweek and NBC, and
yeah.
big newscasting names. Did you get to speak to them directly? Like, did they ever talk to you about what happened?
I spoke with a reporter from NBC. I spoke with a reporter from Out Magazine. I spoke with a couple of local reporters, and then most of those stories just took quotes from those handful of interviews that I had had
Yeah.
and just pulled.
Was
And
it
then,
intimidating to talk to big names like that in newscasting? Was it intimidating at all?
Not if you met
no,
Kamala.
Oh, well, sure.
well, I hadn't met Kamala at that point, but no, no. Being a theater person, I had done interviews before, right?
You
And
were
like
ready.
I had already. So no, the answer is no. That wasn't
Okay.
intimidating to me. I was ready to talk with those reporters.
I got a
Yeah,
question
it was.
here. At risk of sounding like a complete ass, you you had been given authority to kick people out if they had been bigoted to you in the store.
Right.
You didn't think you were
Correct.
going to get fired for kicking
Yeah.
out someone that is a known bigot.
Right.
You went up to them and or maybe it was from the back, but you were screaming obscenities at them
Yeah.
in a louder tone. How did you not think you were going to get fired?
Oh, because it's such a queer friendly place, right? And because we had this understanding that, like, look, if you encounter a bigot, right? It was told to me, like, look, if they're being bigoted towards you, right? And I interpreted it as if you encounter a bigot, right? Like
Right,
it was.
but there's a difference between encountering a bigot and yelling at them.
That's true, but I mean, this was a lefty place, right? Right. I mean, this was a democratic socialist, almost communist sort of bending staff. Uh, this was a place that didn't appreciate bigotry and racism
Well, no
and
one
transphobia.
appreciates it.
No.
Right, right. But this was a place that was full of people who were wearing patches on their work clothes that said punch Nazis. Like it was an environment of, like, zero tolerance for bigots,
Right.
right?
Safe space.
And like my employers and my coworkers knew that I was having these conversations with the city government. Like, it had been in the paper that these conversations were going on, and they knew that I was part of it, right? There had just been a news story that morning that we weren't going to do this. Everybody knew that it was because of the NFA. Everybody in the store knew who Marilyn was. Like, we all knew, like, The store was, though, it was within walking distance of the state capitol. There were a lot of lobbyists that would come in and out of there. There were Republican legislators who would come in and out of there, right? It was a pretty popular place. The food is good. The coffee is good. It's conveniently located, right? So they were kind of worried about, well, we don't want a situation where anybody who's right leaning feels like they're going to get yelled at if they come in here, right?
Right.
Um, but in my head, in the moment, Daphne, I thought that I was just screaming at an obvious, well-known, transphobic, anti-LGBT bigot.
But
That's in my mind, in the headspace that I was after having these weeks of conversations with the city government about the
right.
NFA. It's just where my headspace was, and I really thought that I was in the moment. I thought that my employer was going to understand that this was not an okay thing for her to be a regular at this store and to ask for service from LGBT people while her entire profession is centered around making sure that we don't have rights.
Right.
And I really did think that I
So
was gonna, yeah.
if you said you would do it again if you had the choice, right? If you had the chance,
Uh-huh.
you would do it again. Here's my question
Yeah.
for you, though. If you could do it again, but not scream at them, not yell the obscenities, but just walk up and say, "Hey, we don't appreciate your bigotry here. We're going to ask you to leave." Would you do that instead?
No, no,
No.
no. It. Let me preface that. Maybe if I was working on a campaign, right? If I wasn't just working for a coffee shop in that moment, right?
Yeah.
If I had some sort of other professional responsibility, I might approach that situation differently. But if I knew everything that I knew and how it was going to play out, and I was in the exact same position again,
Yeah.
I would do it that way again. And I'll tell you why. Stochastic terrorism is a real fucking thing. That when bigots like people who work at the Nebraska Family Alliance, like people who work for Focus on the Family, like people who work for Turning Point, like Charlie Kirks of the world, when they go out and they say things like trans people are dangerous to your children, trans people are dangerous to your wife and your sister and your mother, that emboldens people to be violent against trans people. That when that's their rhetoric, they know exactly what they're doing and they are inciting violence. And they're making those arguments with the purpose of making societal life for trans people as hard as possible.
Well,
And
there
in that
comes
moment,
there comes an argument against that, right? If we're turning around and bringing in that same kind of energy and it's successful, then aren't we also inciting violence?
right. I didn't tell anybody that the NFA is a threat to their family. I've never made a public argument that anybody like that deserves to not have access to bathrooms because they're that dangerous to society, or that
I
they
mean,
should be able to be fired from their employment because they're that dangerous to society.
but this
I
is
don't
just a
make those.
messaging difference.
I think that is open to debate.
Okay.
In fairness, I think that's open to debate. That there's just a messaging difference,
Okay.
and also in that moment, I was a minority person confronting a person with power in an extremely powerful lobby in the state of Nebraska. And my mission at that moment was to give that woman just a little itty bitty taste of what it's like to be on the other side of what it is that she's arguing. Like, I had been in plenty of places, and I'm sure lots of trans people have, especially in the Midwest, of feeling uncomfortable about going into a business, not feeling comfortable about patronizing something because you see a sign or you hear something. And I've said this in interviews before and I'll say it again. I think if those types of people could get just a little itty bitty taste of what it is like to live that experience, they just might think twice about trying to do it to someone else.
Let me
I don't.
throw out a conflicting argument. Let's change the scenario. Instead of it being a trans person in a shop, what if it's a civil rights time, right? A black person goes up to a white person, starts screaming obscenities and yelling at somebody and kicks them out, right? You don't think that would have negative effect on the rest of the community?
It definitely could.
And this isn't for
Malcolm.
me to pick on you. This
Yeah,
is
we're
this
not
is
picking
just
No, I
on you.
understand. No, I understand. No, I understand. It definitely could. And there's a debate to be had there, right? Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. existed at the same time, and they both had
right
very, very different
views.
prescriptions on how to combat
Right.
racial discrimination, right? The Black Panthers, I think that if you as a white person were to walk into a Black Panther establishment, you should probably expect to be yelled at, right? And like,
Fair.
I think that there is an argument on both sides of that issue.
That's
There's
fair.
definitely an argument to be made that being civil as possible and being as presentable as possible and being a nice, polite Rosa Parks who is just civilly disciplined, staying, not getting out of her seat. I think that there's a lot of argument to say that that is the right direction to go. I also think that there is a decent argument to be made that more forceful action can also be extremely effective and sometimes can be the linchpin or the spark plug behind radical change
Right.
and behind shifting civic opinion on an issue or not.
Yeah.
And that's, I think that there is a decent argument to be made on both sides of that. Do you want to be a Malcolm X or do you want to be a Martin Luther King, and which side is best, right?
Right.
I don't think that there's necessarily a right or wrong answer to that question. I think that it's often wrapped up in what is the exact situation.
Okay,
right?
but if you have, and I swear I sound like an ass right now. I'm not trying to.
No,
These
no.
are
No, you
genuine
don't.
questions, though. You don't.
Yeah.
If people get the idea that if they come in and they go into a shop and they're going to get yelled at, do you think that that's going to shut down the ability for people to have open conversations in the future? If they think they're going to get yelled at.
It very well may. I mean, do you think that it shuts down conversations for people if a diner is flying a Confederate flag? You know, like,
Yeah, I
you know,
do.
like, yeah, exactly, right? And like,
I just wouldn't
like,
eat there.
sorry, what was that, Bear?
I just wouldn't eat there.
Right, right. You just wouldn't eat there, right? And that's exactly right. And maybe in some situations, it is worthwhile to have spaces that are left leaning and inclusive.
Right.
And hey, if you're a person who flies a Confederate flag, you probably shouldn't eat here,
Right.
right? If you're a person that is transphobic, you probably shouldn't get a coffee here. And I think that there is some value to having those spaces.
Right.
I think that there is some value to fighting fire with fire in certain instances.
Fair.
And I also will concede that that's not universal, right? That's not the same. It's not true
Right.
for all situations. But I hesitate to say that type of action doesn't have its place in the broader mosaic of enacting social change.
I mean, that's fair. And again, this isn't for me to just sit here and pick on you and just say, hey, you're being an asshole to this person. This is just me saying, there's other ways to handle things. And I think it's also important to recognize that our actions have effects, right? And so we can have that conversation quietly, but some people won't hear the conversation quietly. They're just not going to listen. Some people have to be yelled at. I also think it's important to know that not everybody has to be yelled at. And so I just think there's a spectrum across the way here, and I just wanted to point out that there's other available options too.
And that's an excellent point to make, and I agree with you. And just for clarity, for you and for everyone listening, I don't think that you're being an asshole at all.
Thank you.
No.
Thanks.
I think that this is an important conversation to have. And
Yeah, me personally, I'm not one that goes around. I won't yell at somebody just because that's who I am. But I've also talked with other trans people that is their extent. They very much want to, be the person that shuts down everyone. I'm very much the person that just wants to sit down and have a conversation and outsmart you. And so it just depends. Everybody's got a different style. And anyway, I don't know. I just wanted to point it out.
Mine's more rar.
Rar.
I'm not really.
You're a teddy bear.
Not really good with my words.
You're a
I
teddy
like
bear.
action. And so thinking back to the initial incident, and you were talking about being in the heat of the moment, and you confronted this person, and given what you just explained about the bigotry and what this person represented, I lost my question. Was their presence alone enough for you to be? Was their presence alone enough of a threat? Like, could you consider that a reason for your confrontation? Yeah. I think that's what I'm trying to ask.
A threat.
Yeah, was their presence, knowing who they represent, was that a threat? And was that not necessarily a catalyst or an antagonizing?
It made me feel uncomfortable in my workspace.
That's fair.
Right?
Okay.
Like, it definitely was a discomfort having her there. As a regular, that day was not the first. She was there all of the time, right?
Yeah.
And that day in particular, I had just been through these really rough conversations with the city council. The news had just broken that morning that my side of the argument had won, right? The whole reason that we had these really tough conversations and why I had made some enemies in the city government by being forceful with them was because, look, you guys aren't ready to fight against the NFA. It's the whole reason that we can't go have legal protections in Lincoln for LGBT people right now is because of the NFA, right? And I walk into work that morning after reading the newspaper, after weeks of having these conversations, and there she fucking is, right? And there she is. And so, like, it wasn't a spur of the moment thing for me. It was
extreme frustration built up.
It was an extreme frustration that had been built up, right? Exactly right. And there I am early in the morning, fighting a little bit of a cold, just having had all these really tough conversations. And there she is, and it was just like, you fucking cunt! Like, how dare you?
The absolute last person you want to see.
Yeah, like, how dare you be here? And that's why I say, like, if I was back in that situation, exactly in that moment, I would do it again. I absolutely would do it again. She represented the mouthpiece for an organization that was in the way of LGBT legal protections in employment, in housing, in public accommodations.
Right.
And in Lincoln, there were trans people that lost their jobs because they came out as trans on the job. There were people who lost housing because they came out as trans and their landlord didn't understand. Like, this was a real thing that actually, it wasn't some hypothetical situation that my community was dealing with. It was real. Lives were being hurt because of this. And I had just spent weeks telling my city council, we can't hold a vote on this. You can't do it right now because we're going to lose if we do it right now. And if we lose, you're going to make the situation worse. Like, we can't do it right now. And the whole reason we can't do it is the NFA. And then I walk into work and there's the face and the voice of the NFA.
Did yelling at her hurt your argument with those people you're telling not to put it up?
I don't think so, actually.
Yeah?
No, I don't think so. I think pretty much all of them, to a person, even the ones who were upset with me, understood why I did what I did. And,
Yeah.
And in fairness, that situation, what I said to her was pretty mild compared to some of the conversations that we had.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Well,
let's talk about the aftermath.
Sure.
Other people, the place had their phone ringing off the hook. They disconnected their phone. Other employees were getting yelled at. Did you get threats? And what did those look like?
Yeah, I got some death threats. Thankfully, I had my phone number pretty well protected. So it was social media stuff that I was,
Right.
people had found some of my social media handles and it got slid into my DMs with some violent stuff. I
Yeah.
was in a show at that time. I was one of the witches in Hamlet. Um, and
Oh, right on.
Witch and show, bitch in
Wit
person.
and show.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I had to drop out of that show because of some of the threats. Like, it was a situation where people understood that I was in the show because I had been in some press releases for that.
Yeah.
So I had to drop out of that show for the safety of my castmates.
Yeah.
The police were involved with some of that. But yeah, yes, I did deal with some pretty serious threats.
I'm sorry. That's hard. I've been in that position where I've received threats over the same kind of things. So I understand. Different
then-
situation, I guess, but similar circumstances.
Yeah.
Always scary and very not fun.
No,
in
it's
those,
not.
in those types of, yeah.
What about the other side? Yeah, you receive negativity, but what about support from like-minded
Oh,
people?
touche.
Did you receive a lot of
Oh yeah.
support
Oh
from
yeah.
like-minded
Huge
people?
outpouring
Yeah.
of support. Huge outpouring of support.
Good.
People from all over the country, trans people and parents of trans people. It was it far outweighed all of the negativity. I mean, many times over, exponentially more positive messages and gestures of support than otherwise. So yes, I did.
Good.
Pretty much everywhere that story was heard, I had someone in my DMs saying thank you for doing what you did. So
Right on.
yeah.
Would you recommend your actions to someone else
No.
who, they're
No.
if they're in the workplace and they find themselves in this similar situation? You would not
No.
recommend. 0 out of 10.
No.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it was really rough, and this sounds egotistical. But I was a person who, in that moment, I was very well equipped in my personal life and in my professional life to deal with the fallout of that
Yeah.
personally. Right? Like, I had a stable home at that time. I wasn't at risk of losing my housing because I wasn't working for a little while. I had built myself up as a trans advocate specifically, so that it wasn't totally out of the realm of my public persona
Right.
and my
Sure.
how people perceive me publicly for me to have done that. And so, it didn't. Someone else doing that might not have all of those safeguards in place, right? Like I was in a position where a week after that, I got introduced to Kamala Harris and was instantly hired on to a federal campaign, right?
Right.
And that's not true for a lot of people. You're not most. So no, for an average person, I would absolutely not recommend confronting a customer while you're on.
Yeah, fair enough.
We're one of the nice things about politics is that as people start to see motion in an area, they feel more emboldened to join those motions, right? In the case of trans politics, as people see more trans people being able to stand up and more cis people standing up for trans people, more trans people will begin to feel comfortable where they're at, and they will also start feeling more comfortable in being able to also be a voice for other trans people, right? If you could go ahead and offer, because you're very involved in politics and in making differences and change around you, what would you advise other people that aren't as involved in politics but would like to play a part with that? What would you advise to them to say, here's some good ways to get in, here's some good ways to start making change?
Right. Well, if you want to get involved in politics, I would recommend just volunteering, finding a campaign that you agree with or a candidate that you agree with, show up to an office and offer yourself to take phone calls or write phone
Take
cards.
my blood sacrifice.
Right. Well, I mean, just make yourself available, right? show up and make yourself available. If you're a trans person that wants to get involved in a campaign or get involved in politics, showing up is, it really is 90% of it, right? It just being available for those people and being someone that can be relied on to do the work. You'll get noticed that way, and that's how you start getting the ball rolling on a potential political career. There is a whole lot of narrative around just run for something right now, which is I think that there's value in that. I wouldn't recommend to quite everyone to just put their hat into the ring for an elected position. That can be a very stressful endeavor to undertake, and I think that there's some contemporary sentiment that it's easier than it is, and a lot of people get into it and then realize pretty quickly that they're in over their head. So, running for something is right for some people. And if you feel like you're one of those people, I would recommend really looking into that, asking other elected leaders in your community what they feel about your potential candidacy and those types of things. Getting involved with ACLU in your state is a great way to potentially kick off political involvement.
Right.
And then for most people, for the vast majority of society, I would recommend to vote in every single election,
Yeah.
including your local dog catcher race.
Don't be worried
To
about
always
the guards standing by to deter you. Just go do your thing.
just go and vote. Vote in every single election, and I would recommend to a lot of trans people, a lot of fellow trans people, democracy is an extremely messy thing.
Right.
And democracy is great and also awful. It's great because it's great because we all get a say, right? It's great because the rights that we have are not sent down from a monarch or a dictator. They are voted on by our representatives who we vote into office, right? But it sucks because change often takes a long time in a democracy. It's very incremental. It's very slow moving. It's like molasses.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I really beg trans people as often as I can to understand is that do not let perfect be the enemy of good.
I love that.
If you've got a candidate that you feel like is going to be with you on most of the things, vote for that person.
Yeah.
And don't hold up your nose. Don't play with your vote like it's your favorite toy. And you get angry at someone and you want to take away your favorite toy. Like, no one can play with my toy now. That is how we end up with Donald Trump's. That's how we end up with Mitch McConnell's. That's how we end up with these problematic politicians, is because we oftentimes in our community and other communities that are on the left side of politics, we let perfection be the enemy of good.
Yeah.
And we get really frustrated when we don't get to have things exactly the way that we want them in the next election.
Right.
And that's just not how democracy works. And you need to find out who it is that you agree with most. And even if that most is 50% plus one, that's the person that you should vote for. And you shouldn't treat your vote like it's some sort of, your vote is not a popularity contest. It's a civic duty, right?
Yeah.
It's a civic duty, not just to yourself, but to people who will come after you. And our duty is to make governments that will move us in the right direction. You're going to get on the bus, even if the bus isn't going directly to your front door. If it's going to your neighborhood, you need to get on that bus.
Yeah.
Right? Get on the bus that's going to your neighborhood.
So, and another thing that I think is good to point out is that if you're not feeling safe or you're not feeling comfortable going out and being some great activists like this, you can still donate money to programs that are out there doing this, and that makes a difference as well.
Absolutely.
Natalie, we need to kind of wrap this up for ourselves.
Man, we're good time, aren't we?
Yeah, we made good time. Well, and it's been a fun conversation. Like, it's been really nice to see how change can be made. And also, I just think it's fascinating that you've had the opportunity to meet so many different people and be able to make big change, you know?
No joke.
Yeah. So I think that's amazing. I think you should be proud of you. I probably shouldn't say should, but I think you should be proud of yourself. You know, you've put yourself out there in really big ways, and that's something that not everybody is able to do that. I also think, regardless of however it turned out, you stood up for yourself, and that's always something that's commendable.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just wanted to say thank you for that. I've really enjoyed this, actually, even if I
Thank you
wasn't
both for the
asked.
conversation. Oh, and stop with that. No, you were not. No, hard questions. That's what you should do. You've got to ask tough questions, and I think that the conversation was necessary. Thank you both for the
Oh, you
opportunity
bet.
to be here. I think you've got a really great thing going on here, and
Oh,
best of
thank
luck
you.
in your next conversations.
Yeah, no problem. Well, and you and I will
Thanks.
stay in touch anyway. So,
Yes,
Yeah.
all right.
Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you to viewers and everyone listening in. And yeah, of course, thank you, Miss Natalie. And you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, as well as Spotify and YouTube. And if you yourself would like to be a guest on the podcast, the contact is Daphne at transplanningpodcast.com. You can also visit our website, drop us an email.
Or
We-
drop
we
into
like
the
hearing-
socials.
Drop into the socials.
That's how Natalie
Yeah.
found us.
Right on. Yeah, you can find us there too. And I will, little announcement about Trans Awareness Week. It starts 18th?
It's already
Next
started.
week? Oh, it's already started. Okay.
It started. Yes, was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday.
Okay. We
And
will
it's going to
have
go through to the 19.
19.
Fuck, I don't remember. I think it's
We know it's
the
here. We
night-
just
just a sec. I got this shit.
Sweet.
It hold on one second.
wait.
That's calculator, not calendar. Okay, so it started yesterday on the 13th, which for everybody listening to this, it'll be later when they hear this, but it goes through till the 19th, and then the 20th is Trans Day of Remembrance. We have quite a few episodes going to be coming up for that, and a few really special guests coming up. So
Yeah, please listen in. More episodes, more special guests, and fucking pen. Sorry. And sorry. I'm sorry.
And more transplaining.
Yes. Thanks again for everyone tuning in, and as always, welcome to the family.
oh my god, I did it again.
Welcome to the family.